There is something living inside every INFJ that the people closest to them have never met. Not a shadow, not a wound, not a darkness they are hiding from the world. Something the complete opposite of dark. Carl Jung called it the second personality. And he did not mean it as a metaphor. He believed it was a structural feature of the INFJ psyche, a genuine, separate, fully formed interior self that exists in parallel to the one the world sees, built for one purpose and one purpose only: to protect what the INFJ cannot afford to lose. Before we go further, because this needs to be said clearly, the second personality Jung described is not a lie. It is not a mask. It is not manipulation. It is not the INFJ pretending to be something they are not. Today, we are going to walk through exactly what Jung meant by this second personality, where it comes from, what it contains, what it is protecting, and why Jung believed it was not a problem to be solved. It was, in his framework, one of the most sophisticated and necessary acts of psychological self-preservation any type performs. And understanding it, whether you are an INFJ watching this or someone who loves one, will permanently change how you see the behavior you have been trying unsuccessfully to explain. Jung traced the second personality not to deception, but to necessity, and he was specific about the necessity. The INFJ is built with a dominant function, introverted intuition, that perceives at extraordinary depth, takes in enormous amounts of information from the environment, processes it at levels most people never access, and produces understandings that are genuinely difficult for the surrounding world to receive. From very early in life, Jung observed, the INFJ discovers something about this perception. It is not always welcome. The knowing is too much. The sensitivity is inconvenient. The depth of feeling is interpreted as drama. The ability to read what is unspoken makes others uncomfortable. The interior that is rich beyond ordinary measure is received repeatedly as strange. The first personality, the one the world sees, is not fabricated. Jung was clear on this. It is a genuine self, warm, perceptive, present, real in every quality it expresses. But it is curated, edited. The version of the INFJ that has been shaped across years of social feedback to be receivable by the people and environments they inhabit. And in the space created by that curation, in everything that was too much, too strange, too complete for ordinary exchange, the second personality forms, not chosen, accumulated, not hidden, reserved. Jung's description of what the second personality contains is striking precisely because it is the opposite of what most people assume. Most people, when they learn that an INFJ has an interior self the world hasn't seen, assume it must contain something dangerous, something shameful, something that explains the warmth outside as a cover for something colder within. Jung found the opposite. It contains the full force of their opinions, specific, clear, unwilling to compromise, formed through years of private observation and never softened for an audience. It contains their humor, darker, stranger, more particular than anything the social self would risk. The humor that emerges only in the presence of someone who has genuinely earned access to the interior. It contains their desires, not vague longings, but precise, specific, deeply felt wants about their work, their life, their relationships, wants so particular and so non-negotiable that voicing them in ordinary social exchange has always felt more exposing than the situation merited. And it contains, this is the one Jung returned to with the most care, the unedited experience of their own perception. The INFJ's social self perceives constantly and constantly filters what it perceives. Constantly and constantly filters what it perceives. Not out of dishonesty. Because the full perception, every impression, every subtle read, every pattern recognized beneath the surface of every interaction would overwhelm any ordinary conversation if expressed without mediation. The second personality does not filter. It holds what was received fully, without translation, without softening. The complete record of what the INFJ has been taking in and not saying for every day of their adult life. Jung's clinical observation, the one that distinguishes his framework from every simpler account of INFJ privacy, was this: the second personality is not a defense against the world. It is a preservation mechanism for the soul. He used the word soul with the clinical precision he brought to everything, meaning not the spiritual or religious concept, but the Jungian anima or psyche, the deepest, most essential interior self. The part of the person that, if lost or destroyed, cannot be rebuilt. Jung observed that the full interior of the INFJ, the complete perception, the unfiltered depth, the whole self that exists in the second personality is genuinely fragile in a specific way. Not weak. Fragile the way that extraordinary things are fragile. Precision instruments, rare plants, works of art that can only exist in particular conditions, expose them to the wrong environment and they do not simply fail to thrive. They cease to exist in the form that made them valuable. The second personality is the climate-controlled room. The INFJ did not build it out of fear. They built it, or rather it formed across years, because without it, the most essential parts of what they are would not survive the ordinary friction of being fully known by a world that is not equipped to receive them intact. The social self interfaces with the world. The second personality ensures that what interfaces does not consume everything. Jung did not present the second personality as an uncomplicated solution. He was too honest for that. He observed that the same mechanism that preserves the INFJ's interior, the curation, the reservation, the careful management of what is shown and what is kept, carries a specific long-term risk. The risk is not that the interior will be exposed. The risk is that the interior will be sealed. Jung documented what happens when the second personality, initially formed as a preservation system, becomes so well defended, so comprehensively separate from the first personality that genuine contact, even with people who could be trusted, becomes impossible. Not because the INFJ doesn't want contact, because the habit of reservation has become so automatic, so deeply structural, that opening the second personality feels, even in safe conditions, like a violation of something that has organized itself around being closed. The INFJ in this state does not feel protected. They feel unknown. And the loneliness of being unknown, when you have a complete, extraordinary interior self that has simply never found conditions safe enough to fully emerge is, in Jung's clinical observation, one of the most painful forms of human isolation. Not because you lack relationships, because you are in relationship, surrounded by people who care for you, and the part of you that needs to be known has not been reached by any of them. Jung's position on the second personality was not that it needed to be dismantled. He believed it served a genuine purpose, that the preservation it offered was real, that the soul it protected required protection, that the curation the first personality performed was a legitimate and intelligent response to real conditions in the world. His concern was the endpoint. The seed vault exists to preserve life until the right conditions for planting exist. If the conditions arrive and the seeds remain sealed in the vault, not because the conditions are insufficient, but because the vault has forgotten it was always a temporary measure, then the preservation has failed by succeeding too completely. Jung believed the second personality was always meant to be temporary, not in the sense that the INFJ should eventually expose their full interior to everyone, but in the sense that it was meant to preserve the interior until the right person arrived, until the conditions existed in which the full self could be offered once, fully, to someone capable of receiving it, and the preservation system could finally, in that one specific relationship, complete its purpose. Not dissolution, completion. The vault does not need to open to the whole world. It needs to open once to someone who can receive what it contains. The completion of the second personality's purpose does not require the INFJ to become someone different. It does not require extroversion. It does not require vulnerability performed for an audience. It does not require the full interior to be translated into language that anyone in any condition could receive. It requires one person who has, through sustained presence and consistent receipt of what has been gradually, cautiously offered, earned the trust required to enter the interior. Jung called this the experience of genuine witness, the specific, irreplaceable phenomenon of being fully seen by one other consciousness. Not analyzed, not diagnosed, not received through the filter of what the other person can handle or what serves their needs. Seen. He believed that for the INFJ, this experience is not supplementary to psychological health. It is constitutive of it. The second personality was built to keep the soul safe until this experience became possible. An INFJ who has never had it has never had their soul witnessed. And an INFJ who has found in one person the conditions under which the second personality could finally open experiences something Jung described as the closest the human psyche comes to arriving at itself. If you are an INFJ watching this, and something in the last 11 minutes felt less like a description of a personality type and more like the first time someone has described accurately and without judgment the architecture of your own interior, I want to say something Jung believed with unusual conviction. The second personality is not a failure of openness. It is a success of loyalty. Loyalty to the parts of yourself that have not yet found the conditions they require, that have been preserved carefully at real cost across years of ordinary human exchange because something in you has always known they were worth keeping.